fire pops in the stove. Brothers. Warmth on the knuckles. Steam off a mug. And that old knee pain that wakes up when the cold rolls in. Funny thing about leaving the battlefield. The fight does not always end. Sometimes the quiet is worse than gunfire. In the silence, the ghosts of the past get loud, and a man starts listening for danger that has no name. Then the breach comes. The safe zone gets a knock you did not invite. Not with bullets, with money, cameras, and a smile that means harm. So let me ask you straight. When somebody backs you into a corner, do you run? Or do you hold the line? In Savannah, a billionaire mocked a limping vet in a red and black flannel and a service dog named Ranger. One touch, one lie. And the trap he built snapped shut on his own life and on everything he thought he owned. Sit down with me, brother. Hear how a protector stays calm when the street turns hostile, and take the lesson home. Rain on the cobblestones. Warm rain slid down the cobblestones of Savannah's old quarter, turning the narrow street into a mirror of yellow lamps and blurred faces. The air smelled of river water, oil, and fried food drifting from a diner that had survived longer than most promises. Ethan Cole walked carefully, favoring his left leg without making a show of it. At 40, his body still carried the shape of strength, tall and broad-shouldered, but it also carried memory. A red and black flannel shirt stretched across his back, darkened slightly by rain. Faded jeans clung to his boots. At his side moved Ranger. The German Shepherd was 5 years old, black and tan, powerful without being restless. A black harness hugged his chest, the white letters impossible to miss. Service dog. Do not pet. Ranger walked half a step behind Ethan's knee, head level, eyes alert, not tense, watching. Ethan liked this part of the evening. The quiet after work, the steady rhythm of walking. Ranger's presence anchored him in the present, kept his thoughts from drifting too far back. Too far back was dangerous. They stopped under the awning of Martha's Diner, a squat little building with fogged windows and a flickering neon sign. Inside, the smell of grease and coffee wrapped around him like something familiar. Martha King appeared behind the counter, 65. Gray hair pulled into a loose bun, face lined by years of heat and worry. Her eyes softened when she saw Ethan. "You're late," she said, not unkindly. "Rain," Ethan answered. His voice was low, steady, unused to filling rooms. She glanced down at Ranger, who sat the moment Ethan stopped. "Good boy," she muttered, already turning to grab a paper bag. "Lily eat yet, waiting on me," Ethan said. Martha shook her head. "That kid has patience you didn't get." Ethan almost smiled. Outside, the street was louder now. Engines idled. Laughter spilled from a nearby restaurant, where money gathered in pressed suits and clean shoes. Ethan stepped back into the rain with the bag in hand. That was when the laughter changed. Not joy. Something sharper. A black luxury sedan idled at the curb, half blocking the narrow lane. Its driver stood beside it, tense, while a man in a tailored charcoal suit argued loudly into a phone. Grant Hale was 45. Tall, thick through the chest, hair slicked back despite the humidity. His watch flashed when he gestured. His voice carried. "I don't care how you fix it," Grant snapped. "I'm not walking another block." He ended the call and turned, scanning the street like it owed him something. His eyes landed on Ethan, on the flannel, on the limp, on the dog. Grant's mouth curved into a smile that held no warmth. "Well," he said loudly, glancing around as if inviting agreement. "That explains the smell." A couple nearby chuckled, not because it was funny, but because Grant expected it. Ethan felt the familiar tightening in his chest, not anger, calculation. He'd learned long ago that anger wasted energy. He shifted the bag in his hand, placed himself slightly in front of Ranger without thinking about it. "Sir," Ethan said, calm. "You're blocking the entrance." Grant looked down at Ranger, then at the harness. He bent slightly, invading space on purpose. "It's a dog," he said. "Relax. Don't touch him," Ethan said, still calm, firmer now. Grant laughed and reached out anyway, fingers brushing the edge of the harness. It was meant to humiliate, to prove something. Ranger did not growl. He did not lunge. He rose smoothly to a standing position, body angled between Ethan and Grant, eyes locked, posture unmistakable. A warning. Something flickered across Grant's face. Surprise, then annoyance. "Get this thing away from me," Grant snapped, stepping back too fast. That was when his hand flew to his chest. At first, Ethan thought it was theater, a way to flip the moment. But then Grant's face drained of color. His breath hitched, shallow and uneven. The rain kept falling. Grant tried to straighten, tried to laugh it off, but his knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of the car, knocking his phone to the pavement. Ethan moved without asking permission. He guided Grant down, controlled, keeping his head from hitting the curb. Ranger sat instantly, eyes on Grant, ears forward. "Call 911, Ethan said to no one in particular. People hesitated. Phones came out, but no one spoke. Ethan checked Grant's pupils, uneven, breathing fast, pulse irregular. "You're having a medical event," Ethan said quietly, close enough that Grant could hear. "Stay with me." Grant's eyes darted, fear breaking through arrogance. He opened his mouth to say something sharp, but nothing came out. Across the street, a woman stepped forward from the restaurant doorway. Claire Bennett was 33, slender, with dark hair pulled back and a posture that suggested she paid attention. Her dress was simple, elegant, without trying. Her eyes took in the scene quickly. The dog. The man on the ground, Ethan's hands steady at Grant's neck. "What do you need?" she asked. "Ambulance is coming," Ethan said. "He needs space." Claire turned, her voice calm but unyielding. Everyone stepped back. Now, they listened. Ethan felt Ranger's presence at his side, solid and silent. For a brief moment, he wondered how many times this scene had replayed in his life. Different uniforms, different ground, same helpless look in another man's eyes. He pushed the thought away. Sirens cut through the rain as paramedics took over. Grant was lifted onto a stretcher, his hand clutching the sleeve of Claire's coat like an anchor. His eyes found Ethan one last time, not with contempt, with something closer to panic. Ethan stepped back, already fading from the center of things. Ranger followed. The rain washed the street clean again, as if nothing had happened. But Ethan knew better. Some moments changed the direction of lives. Some lessons came fast, and some regrets arrived instantly. The sirens didn't wash it away. The rain eased into a steady drizzle, sirens fading down the street like a memory that refused to settle. Yellow light returned to the cobblestones, softer now, as if the city itself was unsure what it had just witnessed. Ethan Cole stood a few steps back from the ambulance, his red and black flannel darkened by rain, sleeves pushed to his forearms. Ranger sat at his left side, calm and unmoving, the black harness still sharp against his coat. "Service dog. Do not pet." The words felt heavier than usual. Grant Hale lay on the stretcher, oxygen mask fogging with each uneven breath. The arrogance that had filled his voice minutes earlier was gone, replaced by something raw and unguarded. Fear did that to people. It stripped away polish and left the truth underneath. One of the paramedics, a broad-shouldered man in his early 30s, with tired eyes and quick hands, looked up at Ethan. "You the one who stabilized him?" Ethan nodded once. He had chest tightness, irregular pulse, pupil imbalance. Onset was fast. The paramedic studied him for a second, then gave a short nod of respect. "You military." "Was," Ethan said. That answer always carried distance with it. A door that stayed shut. Across the street, Claire Bennett watched the scene come apart and reassemble itself into order. She stood under the restaurant awning, rain catching on the hem of her dress. Arms folded not for warmth, but to keep herself steady. Her face was composed, but her eyes tracked everything. The dog. The limp. The way Ethan stepped back once professionals arrived. He wasn't chasing praise. He wasn't lingering. That, more than anything, unsettled her. Grant's voice broke through the hum of activity. Wait. He reached weakly toward her as they lifted him into the ambulance. Claire, don't let them make this worse than it is. Claire leaned in just enough to hear him. His grip was desperate now, fingers digging into fabric. She felt a flash of anger, not at his condition, but at the instinct to control, even while lying flat on his back. You need to breathe, she said quietly. Let them help you. His eyes slid past her, locking on Ethan. Something flickered there. Confusion. Suspicion. Maybe shame. Then the doors closed. The ambulance pulled away. Red lights smearing across wet stone. The crowd began to thin, conversations breaking out in low, excited tones. Phones were already out, clips already uploading. The story was changing hands faster than facts ever could. Ethan turned toward Martha's diner, the paper bag still warm in his grip. Ranger rose with him, perfectly timed. They took 3 steps before a voice stopped him. Hey. Ethan turned. Claire stepped out from under the awning, up close. She looked younger than he had expected, but there was a weight behind her eyes that didn't belong to youth. Her posture was straight, controlled. She held herself like someone used to rooms watching her. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, for what you did. Ethan shook his head slightly. Anyone would've. No, Claire said. They didn't. The truth of it landed between them. Ranger glanced up at Claire, assessing. His tail remained still, but he didn't shift away. That alone surprised her. What's his name? She asked, nodding toward the dog. Ranger. She smiled faintly. Figures. Ethan didn't return it. Not because he was unfriendly, because smiling felt like an invitation. And invitations had a way of leading to places he no longer went. I should get home, he said. Claire hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out a card. Simple. No glossy logo, just a name and a number. If anyone tries to twist this, she said, holding it out, call me. Ethan looked at the card, then at her face. He saw sincerity there. And something else. Resolve. I don't want trouble, he said. Neither do I, Claire replied. But I don't ignore it when it shows up. He took the card. They parted without another word. At home. The small house smelled faintly of detergent and old wood. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, crayons spread around her like fallen leaves. She looked up the moment the door opened. You took long, she said. Rain, Ethan answered, the same word as before. Ranger went straight to her, lowering his head so she could wrap her arms around his neck. She pressed her face into his fur, then pulled back. You're wet, she scolded. So are you, Ethan said, toeing off his boots. Lily's eyes drifted to his face. She studied him the way children do when they sense something unspoken. Did something bad happen? Ethan sat across from her, joints stiff, and considered the truth. Not the full one, just enough. Someone got sick, he said. They're getting help. She nodded, satisfied. Then her brow furrowed. Why do people stare at Ranger? Ethan glanced at the harness, at the words that explained everything and nothing. Because they don't read, he said. Later that night, after Lily slept, Ethan stood at the kitchen sink, staring out into the dark yard. The card lay on the counter beside him. Claire Bennett, clean type, no frills. He thought of Grant's hand clutching at nothing, of the look that came right before fear took over. Instant regret had a sound. A smell, a weight. Ranger lay at his feet, eyes open, listening. Ethan knew this wasn't over. He just didn't know how close it already was. When the story turns its teeth, morning fog clung low over Savannah, dulling the edges of buildings and muting sound, as if the city itself was holding its breath. The river smelled heavier than usual, thick with silt and old secrets. Ethan Cole noticed the stairs before he noticed the phones. He walked Lily to the bus stop the same way he always did. Red and black flannel buttoned against the cool air. his left leg stiff until it warmed. Ranger moved beside him, steady and controlled, the black harness snug across his chest. Service dog. Do not pet. The words felt less like a warning now and more like a challenge. A woman across the street raised her phone and whispered to someone beside her. A man shook his head, eyes narrowed, as if Ethan had personally disappointed him. Lily sensed it too. She stayed closer than usual, her small hand brushing Ethan's sleeve. "Why are they looking at us?" she asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. He watched Ranger instead, watched how the dog ignored everything but their path forward. "People look when they think they know something," Ethan said finally. "Most of the time, they don't." Lily accepted that, the way children accept truths that don't yet hurt them. The hurt came later, at Martha's diner. The television above the counter was turned up louder than usual. A news chyron crawled across the bottom of the screen. Developer hospitalized after altercation with dog. Martha stood frozen behind the counter, spatula in hand, jaw tight. She was still strong for her age, shoulders squared, but her eyes carried worry now. "They're saying things," she said when she saw Ethan. "Stupid things." On the screen, grainy footage played. A clip cut just before Grant Hale reached for Ranger, just before his face changed, just before the truth mattered. Ethan felt something cold settle behind his ribs. Not fear. Recognition. "They always do this part," he said quietly. Martha slapped the spatula down. "That man was asking for trouble." "Doesn't matter," Ethan replied. "They don't show that." Outside, a patrol car rolled slowly past, then stopped. An officer stepped out. Daniel Reyes was 38, lean, with close-cropped dark hair and a posture that suggested discipline rather than authority. His uniform was neat, his eyes alert without being hard. He approached calmly, hands visible, gaze flicking briefly to Ranger before returning to Ethan's face. "Morning," Reyes said. "Mind if I talk to you a minute?" Ethan nodded. Ranger sat without command. Reyes glanced at the harness, then back at Ethan. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "Off the record." Ethan met his eyes. "On the record tends to change." Reyes exhaled. "Grant Hale's people are pushing a narrative, saying you threatened him, that the dog was aggressive." Ethan felt the old anger stir, sharp and familiar. He pressed it down. Anger made mistakes. "There were witnesses," Ethan said. "There were." Reyes agreed. "But there are edits. And money." That word hung heavier than the rest. Reyes shifted his weight. "I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to tell you to be careful." Ethan almost laughed. He didn't. At home, the phone rang all afternoon. Unknown numbers. Messages left without names. Ethan didn't answer any of them. He sat at the small kitchen table, Lily coloring beside him. Ranger stretched across the doorway like a quiet guard. When Lily finally went to her room, Ethan checked his phone. A message from Claire Bennett. "They're spinning it. I'm trying to stop it. Call me when you can." Ethan stared at the screen longer than necessary. He hadn't wanted this. Any of it. He'd learned Small was safe. He called her. They met that evening at a quiet park near the river. Claire wore a simple coat, hair pulled back. No makeup beyond what the day had left her. She looked tired, but focused. Angry, but controlled. "I'm sorry," she said, immediately. "This escalated faster than I thought." Ethan leaned against a railing, weight off his bad leg. Ranger lay at his feet, eyes tracking the dark water. "Not your fault," Ethan said. "It is if I walk away," Claire replied. She told him what she'd learned. Grant's PR team had already contacted local stations. They were framing Ethan as unstable, as dangerous. "The dog is a threat. They want you quiet," Claire said. "They think you'll disappear." Ethan looked out over the river. He saw reflections instead of faces, memories instead of lights. "My wife died because people like him cut corners," he said softly. "I didn't fight then. I was tired. I had Lily." Claire listened. She didn't interrupt. That mattered. "I won't let them do this again," she said when he finished. "But I need your permission to push back. Ethan hesitated. He thought of Lily at the bus stop, of Ranger being labeled something he wasn't, of silence feeling heavier than risk. "Do what you have to do," he said. Claire nodded once. "So will I." As they parted, Ethan felt the shift. The moment when standing still became a choice, not a refuge. Back home, he tucked Lily in. She looked at him seriously, eyes too wise for 8 years. "You didn't do anything bad," she said. Ethan brushed her hair back. "No." "Then don't let them say you did." Her words were simple, unarguable. In the kitchen, Ranger lifted his head as Ethan turned off the lights. The dog's eyes were calm, ready. The fog outside thickened, swallowing the street. Somewhere across town, Grant Hale was recovering, planning his next move. Ethan knew something now. Instant regret didn't always come with sirens. Sometimes it arrived with a lie. The trap that snapped back. Clouds hung low and heavy over the riverfront, the air thick with heat and the promise of rain that never quite fell. Savannah felt tense, like a held breath, as if the city itself knew something was about to break. Ethan Cole arrived early. He stood at the edge of the unfinished riverfront development, red and black flannel rolled at the sleeves, boots planted firm on uneven ground. His left leg ached, the old injury reminding him that nothing built on shortcuts ever lasted. Rangers stayed close, the German shepherd's posture calm but alert, black harness snug against his chest. "Service dog. Do not pet." The letters were clean. The ground beneath them was not. Grant Hale wanted this public. That much was obvious. Temporary lights had been set up, cables snaking across damp concrete. A small stage stood near the river, banners snapping lightly in the breeze. Grant's logo was everywhere, polished and confident, promising luxury homes and easy lives. Cameras were already gathering, reporters murmuring, producers checking angles. Grant emerged from a black SUV with practiced ease. His suit was lighter than usual, tailored to suggest recovery rather than weakness. His face still carried a pallor beneath the makeup, but his smile was wide, rehearsed. He moved carefully, aware that every step was being watched. Ethan watched him too, not with hatred, with clarity. Grant stepped to the microphone, voice smooth. "I want to thank everyone for their concern," he began. "I'm grateful to be standing here today." Applause followed on cue. Grant continued, speaking about resilience, about community, about misunderstanding. He never said Ethan's name. He didn't have to. He gestured instead, letting the cameras find what he wanted them to find. A man moved in from the side of the crowd, early 30s, short hair, nervous energy. His jacket was zipped too high for the heat. His eyes never stopped flicking toward Grant. Ethan saw it instantly. The man drifted closer, angling himself toward Ranger. He dropped something near the dog's feet, a piece of food, smelling sharp. Wrong. Ranger stiffened. Ethan's hand came down on the harness, firm. "Stay." Ranger stayed. The man reached out, too fast, too careless. "Hey, easy," he said loudly, voice pitched for the cameras. "Control your dog." Before Ethan could answer, the ground shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. A sharp crack echoed beneath the stage. The concrete slab nearest the river gave way, crumbling along a seam that should never have been there. Water rushed in, dark and fast. Cables sparked. People screamed. Grant's confident posture collapsed into chaos. He stumbled backward, heel catching on loose debris. A steel support beam tilted, dropped, pinning his leg. His shout cut through the noise, raw and terrified. The man who had approached Ranger bolted. Ethan moved. Pain flared in his left leg as he ran, but he ignored it. He always did. Ranger surged ahead, finding a clear path through falling equipment and shouting bodies. Ethan reached Grant first. Grant's face was contorted now, the mask gone. "Help me," he gasped. "Please, Ethan braced himself, tested the beam. Heavy. Awkward. Ranger circled, found a stable angle, and pulled at Ethan's sleeve with controlled urgency, not panic. Direction. Good, Ethan muttered. He shifted, leveraged the beam just enough to slide Grant free. His legs screamed in protest, but he held until Grant was clear. Officer Daniel Reyes arrived seconds later, uniform already streaked with grime, directing people back, calling for medical support. The man who had tried to provoke Ranger was tackled near the edge of the crowd. His phone skidded across the concrete, screen still lit. Messages visible. Instructions. Payment confirmations. Claire Bennett stood frozen for half a second, then moved. She helped Reyes secure the area, her voice steady, authoritative. She knelt beside Ethan as Grant was pulled away, her hand hovering, unsure where to touch. "You're hurt," she said. "I'll manage," Ethan replied. Grant was lifted onto a stretcher again. This time, there was no applause, only whispers. Cameras caught everything. The dropped food, the staged approach, the collapsing slab. Instant regret had found its angle. As paramedics worked, Grant's eyes locked onto Ethan. There was something different there now. Not anger, not arrogance. Recognition. Later, after the site was cleared and the crowd dispersed, Ethan sat on a low concrete wall, Ranger pressed against his side. Claire stood in front of him, arms crossed. Rain finally beginning to fall. "They set him up," Claire said quietly, "to make Ranger look dangerous." Ethan nodded. "Bad plan." Reyes approached, holding the phone in an evidence bag. "It's all here," he said. "Messages, money transfers. Enough to start digging." "Good," Ethan said. Grant Hale's empire had been built fast, too fast, and like the concrete beneath his stage, it was cracking where no one wanted to look. Claire exhaled, tension draining from her shoulders. "I'm sorry I doubted how far he'd go." "You didn't," Ethan said. "You showed up." She looked at him then, really looked. At the flannel stained with dust and rain, at the limp he tried to hide, at the dog who had done nothing wrong and everything right. "Come with me," she said. "You and Lily, somewhere quiet, just for tonight." Ethan hesitated. The instinct to retreat was strong, familiar. Then he thought of Lily, of lies following them, of silence costing more than words. "Okay," he said. Ranger's tail thumped once against the concrete. Behind them, lights flickered and died at the riverfront. The stage stood broken, banners torn, the promise of easy lives washed into the river. Grant Hale was taken away again, this time under watch, and the trap he had set closed on its maker. What remains after the noise? Morning broke clear and cool, the storm finally spent, sunlight spreading over Savannah, as if the city had decided to tell the truth. The air felt lighter, rinsed clean by everything that had fallen apart the day before. Ethan Cole woke early, as he always did. He sat at the small kitchen table, red and black flannel draped over the chair beside him, coffee cooling, untouched. His left leg ached in the dull, familiar way that meant he had pushed too hard. He welcomed the pain. It reminded him he was still here. Ranger lay at his feet, head up, eyes open, listening to the house breathe. The black harness rested by the door. Letters stark in the morning light. "Service dog. Do not pet." The phone rang. Ethan stared at it for a long second before answering. "It's Reyes," came the voice on the other end. Officer Daniel Reyes sounded tired but steady. "They made the arrest last night. The guy who tried to provoke your dog flipped fast. Gave us names, payments, orders." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Not relief. Confirmation. "And Grant?" he asked. Reyes exhaled. "Under investigation. Construction violations. Endangerment. Evidence tampering. It's a long list." Ethan nodded to no one. "Thank you." After the call ended, Lily padded into the kitchen, hair wild, eyes still half asleep. She climbed into a chair and watched him with that quiet focus children used when they sensed something important had shifted. "Is it over?" she asked. Ethan considered the question. Over was a big word. The loud part is, he said. She smiled, small and hopeful. Good. Later that morning, they met Claire Bennett at the park by the river, the same place where they had spoken days ago, when everything still felt uncertain. Claire stood near the railing, coat open, hair loose now. No armor left in the way she carried herself. She looked relieved and nervous. "You don't owe me anything," Ethan said as he approached. "I know," Claire replied. "That's why I'm here." They sat on a bench, Ranger settling between Ethan's boots, Lily leaning against Claire's side as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Claire didn't pull away. Grant Hale's name had filled the news all night. The footage from the riverfront had played on every channel. The staged provocation, the collapsing slab, the messages on the phone. Instant regret, broadcast in high definition. "I should have seen it sooner," Claire said quietly. The way he spoke to people, the way he treated space like it belonged to him. "You did see it," Ethan replied. "You just didn't run." She smiled at that. Then her expression grew serious. "I want to help you reopen your wife's case." Ethan stiffened. "I won't push," Claire said quickly. "But what happened to her? It connects to his projects. Materials, permits, shortcuts." Ethan looked out at the river. The water moved steadily, indifferent to everything humans built on its edges. "I buried that," he said. "For Lily." "I know," Claire said. "And you kept her safe. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. It surfaces. Like this." She gestured vaguely toward the city. Ethan thought of the years he had spent quiet, small, invisible by choice. He thought of Lily asking why people stared, of Ranger being framed for existing. "Okay," he said at last. "We do it right." Claire nodded. No triumph, just resolve. That afternoon, they went to Martha's Diner. The place buzzed with a different energy now, not gossip, pride. Martha hugged Ethan without asking, her grip strong despite her age. "They finally showed the whole clip," she said. "About time." Ethan glanced at the television. His face was there. Rangers, too. Not as villains, just as they were. Claire watched him carefully. "You're allowed to feel something," she said. "I do," Ethan replied. "I just don't let it drive." As evening settled, Claire walked them home. The small house glowed warm against the darkening street. Lily ran ahead, Ranger trotting beside her, the harness catching porch light. At the door, Claire hesitated. "I don't know what this looks like," she said softly, "but I'd like to find out." Slowly, Ethan studied her face. He saw strength there, and doubt, and a kindness that didn't ask to be repaid. "Dinner," he said. "Tomorrow. Nothing fancy." She laughed, relief breaking through. "I can do not fancy." After she left, Ethan stood on the porch for a long time. Ranger sat beside him, shoulder pressed into his leg, grounding him. Instant regret had taken something from Grant Hale, but it had given something back, too. Not justice yet. That would take time, paperwork, patience, but something simpler, truth, and a chance to build forward without lies. Inside, Lily called out, "Dad." Ranger stole my pillow. Ethan smiled, a real one this time, and went inside. Sometimes a miracle does not arrive like thunder or light from the sky. Sometimes it comes quietly, wearing work boots, walking with a limp, choosing mercy when pride would be easier. This story reminds us that God's work often moves through ordinary people, through restraint instead of revenge, through truth spoken softly instead of shouted, through the courage to do what is right, even when no one is watching. In daily life, we all face moments like this. A choice to stay silent or speak, to walk away or step in, to harden our hearts, or trust that doing good still matters. Faith is not about never falling. It is about standing back up and believing that God can turn even broken moments into purpose. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us what part stayed with you. Subscribe for more stories about justice, redemption, and quiet faith. May God bless you and your family.
today and always.